Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Beginner's Guide. This one for Spa Francorchamps, the Grand Prix Pit version, which I think is the most fun version. Actually, I can't say that honestly. I've never run any of the other versions. This is the one I watch in Formula One, so it's always fun to me to watch that and then drive a course that I saw there. So today we're going to break down the course. We're going to go through each turn, kind of talk about positioning of the car, and then we'll slowly build up into a reasonable lap. Just a note ahead of time, this is not a class or a guide intended for experienced drivers to this track or super experienced sim racers. This is about beginners. This is about people who are new to this track, who are just trying to figure out the line. And you can turn on the line guide, but which I even do when I first start on track, but only for a few laps because ultimately you have to learn the track yourself again anyway. And the line only shows you some vague idea of where throttle is applied or where brake is or where you're trail braking, whatever. It's all very vague. So you really just have to learn it on your own. So here we are anyway at Spa. We're going to take it through. So first off, what I always do, I load in my Majors Garage free, I emphasize, setup. They have a baseline for pretty much every track that I've needed so far. And here's Spa right here. So go to Majors Garage. There's a link in the description down below. Take a look at that. And go ahead and start with the free ones. And they have more advanced versions that cost a few bucks, literally a few bucks. So it's a great deal. So once we've done that, I'm going to go into my session here. I'm going to use my pit speed limiter I have assigned to a button, as always. First thing about this course, this pit exit is really tight. So don't just gun it and think you're going to go for it. Look at how tight it is here coming out of onto the track. And also there's the blend line. I don't recommend crossing that, as always. So the first turn, this is actually not the start-finish line. That's around the corner. We'll see it in a minute. But this first turn here is Eau Rouge, at least the first turn out of the pits. So we've all seen this one. It's crazy fast, and it really does take a little bit of real fine touch to the wheel. So let's take it easy. First of all, you're going to tuck yourself all the way to the right side. You're going to be flat out in 7th gear here. There's no lifting. It's not. I don't advise you lift. Certainly not during the turn, which is typical, but not lifting into the turn or in the turn is great, but you don't need to lift going into the turn at all. So we're going to come down here, and what we're going to do is from about right here, we're going to clip over and catch this curve. You're actually going to drive across the curve. You don't want to go up onto the left section there that looks rougher. You want to go on the actual red and white section here. And what you're doing is you're positioning your car. You can see the kind of markers on the tarmac. To come up the hill, you're going to have some compression here, which is going to allow you to rotate the car. And what you want to do is catch just the edge of this lip right here. So you're not going to force it over there. If you do, you're going to spin. So you want to just kind of direct the car right up over to the edge. And as you get up the edge, your tendency is going to want to unwind it. But you need to hold that for just a beat longer. Just about to right here, and then just gently unwind the wheel. What that's going to do is slide you right past this left section right here. So that's okay. If you put a wheel up on that, you can even go further up on that. And that lets you exit out to this side here. Now at speed, it's very much a dance. So you very little inputs, very careful, and just you got to keep tabs on it throughout the entire turn. You can't just assume you're going to set the car like in some turns and let it go. So be very careful with that. We'll see more of that as we get up to speed here. So real quick note I'm going to say about this track. They specifically outline the track limits in the rules at the beginning, so you make sure to take a look at that. But when you do, note that they allow you to go off track, or at least use the off-track portion in many places. The trick is you have to keep at least one tire, or at least part of one tire, on the track. So this is actually legal right here. And in many places, it's exactly the same. If I go, if you can kind of see my tire is just going to go off right, you know, we're off the track there. You can see it on the left side there. That obviously is illegal. But you can drive pretty close to off the track. So this is a good course where using all the track is encouraged and is okay. So be aware of that. Just don't exceed those limits. So now we're going to come down this straightaway. It's, I think this is, I don't even remember. I'm not going to try, the only one I know for sure the name is Eau Rouge. So there's names for everything here, and I can never remember. So you're eventually going to just let it kind of find itself to the left side of the track. So here you're going to be flat out as well. And you're going to look for not only the 100-yard marker or 100-meter marker, but you're also going to look for this white line. See that white line there on the tarmac or on the pavement? You're going to brake ultimately just past that white line. Probably the more comfortable you get, the deeper past the white line. But I usually wait a beat after it disappears, and I'm braking somewhere right in here. And it's pretty hard straight line braking because you're going from 7th gear full out down to what's going to be 3rd gear. So I'm down to 3rd gear right here as I turn in and rolling on the throttle again. So as I roll on the throttle here in 3rd gear, I'm going to catch the right side of the curb there, keeping my throttle on. I'm going to unwind that and catch the left side here. And at speed, you'll kind of slide right past that. Great. Now, somewhere about right here, I lift slightly. That enables me to rotate the car and get it back to this side of the track, okay, which I want to do for the entry of the next turn. Now, somewhere about right here, somewhere in the turn or roughly here, I'm shifting to 4th gear. But to make this apex, I'm going to have to lift slightly. So it's not a big lift, just a little bit of a lift to get the car to rotate. And that's going to allow you to come and unwind to this side of the track. And again, put a wheel off there, it's fine. But there's not much space on that curb, if you notice. That curb runs out quickly and gets into sand. So you don't want to go crazy with that and use too much curb. But you don't really need to. So that places you on the left side of the track here. And as you're coming down this hill, you're going to pick up some good speed. I get to 6th gear just as I hit about right here. So just before I hit this curb starts. And pretty much at the curb starting is when I start braking. So it's a split second in 6th, and then I'm dropping gears now. Hard brake. You got it. This is okay. This turn is tricky. You so want to take it fast, but the truth is you can't take it fast. It is going to be a slow turn no matter what you do. So you just need to be patient and let it happen. So what's going to happen is you're going to downshift. Or what I do here is I downshift to 3rd gear. As I turn in, I go to 2nd gear here, and I tuck the tire to the curb. And I use the throttle. I just fluctuate the throttle to let me carry it around to here. Somewhere about right here, I can unwind a little bit. And you're pretty close to rev limiters, so somewhere as you start unwinding, you're going to go into 3rd. Let it unwind. I usually don't make it all the way to that curve over there. And then you kind of bring it back to this side, using this curb if you can, not too much, just on the red and white part. Now this, by the time you're here, you want to be in 4th gear. So you're going to come out of that turn. You're going to shift up to 3rd from 2nd. You're going to get to 4th by the time you're here. I've had equal success just braking a little bit here and turning in as I've had downshifting one and turning in. It just depends on how you get your braking done. If you're efficient with your braking in a straight line, you put enough on but not too much so that you're going to spin the car and you get back on the throttle as you actually turn in, then you can do this in 4th gear and use a little bit of the runoff on the outside, you'll see. But if you feel uncomfortable about that, don't worry about downshifting to 3rd. I haven't noticed, at least in the early days, of losing a ton of speed doing this. So it's a good place to start until you get more comfortable. So obviously, if I'm in 4th gear or 3rd gear, it doesn't matter. I'm going to come by, I'm going to sweep past this inner apex and let the car unwind. Now, if you're in 4th gear, you're probably close to hitting 5th. You unwind there. You kind of just come off the curb because it ends. So I'm 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear. And if you're running fast enough, I get to 7th gear, about right here. And then right after the curb goes away, I am downshifting again. So let's back up here a little bit. So again, as you're coming through this, and I'm in 7th gear, about right here, as soon as that curb disappears, I'm braking and downshifting to, it's probably even more here, just at speed, it looks different. The middle of this curve, middle of the length of the curve. I'm quickly downshifting to 5th from 7th, balancing my throttle and coming in and sweeping close to the inside of this curve. Not tight to it, but close like this. What that's going to allow you to do, if you keep balancing your throttle, a little bit of throttle on and being able to lift to rotate the car, you want the car to unwind over to here. And these are one of those curbs that you can put the car on it and it's not illegal. You're not going to get a penalty. So it is very easy at this point at speed to put all 4 wheels off, both sides. So preferably you're going to stop here, get to a lower gear so I can drive. You're going to stop your outward journey there and start curving back in. And if you're here in position like that, you're going to be back on nearly full throttle, which is going to bring you in tighter to this and this curve right here, so the second apex. Now the thing to note about this is during a race, if you do that right, most people don't do that right, and I've passed people coming out of this turn because I took that sweeping turn. It's almost like you're taking a single apex turn by going out like that and coming back in. But it takes a little bit of touch and it's very easy to go off track. So you don't necessarily spin because there's a ton of pavement out there, but you are going to get a penalty point. So anyway, we're at 7th gear or 6th gear probably by now, coming through here, unwinding. You can use a little bit of this curb if you need to. Sometimes you don't need to if you take that wide out, and you're coming down. So this turn coming up is almost like a chicane. I guess it probably is a big chicane, but it's wide, so you don't have to get rid of a ton of speed. Now, usually you're going to be up close to 7th gear, if not in 7th gear, before you're getting here. I brake for this just as this curve starts, roughly. Okay, but I'm dropping it down, funny enough, to 4th gear, which is what I'm in right now. So I'm far left. I'm dropping it down to 4th gear about right here. As I turn in and back on the throttle, I sweep in to a late apex early here. Then I might lift slightly to let the car rotate to get the second apex, and now I can squeeze on the throttle again, which will unwind me to here. All right, so now we get in. This one is tighter. It doesn't seem like it is initially, but it is tighter. I usually drop it down to 3rd gear here, not here, but I'm 4th, then I'm, let me clarify that just a bit more here. So I'm coming down here, and I'm probably in 5th by now out of that last turn. I get the car to the left side. I drop it to 4th here. As I turn in, I drop it to 3rd. That gets me pretty high on the RPMs, but gives me nice balance for the car. I'm shifting to 4th almost immediately and unwinding out here. So the rest of this turn, until we get to the bus stop chicane, I believe it's called, before the final straightaway, the start-finish line, the rest of it's flat out. It's full throttle, flat out. So, not to completely bore you. So what you're going to do is start left. You're going to sweep through here. You don't have to touch this curb, but you can get a little bit of tire width or so. Let it unwind. Here's also another space where you can go a little wide if you need to. So you don't really need to go that wide. Not the speed of these cars. And here's a quick point. You want always the straightest line possible, right? Well, you're taking all these turns and trying to pick the straightest line you can. This is a good example. You pick up actually a couple tenths if you go straight here and cut through these lines rather than keeping the car wide. So that's something to be aware of, that you can actually get a little bit of time out of keeping it to the right there. And usually I'm up to 7th before I get to the side. I'm keeping the car in the middle of the track. Oh, my tires are really cold. So I'm keeping the car in the middle of the track at this point. Again, we're flat out, remember. So middle of the track, not trying to apex anything. We're just flying through here, nicely balanced. Don't fight the car. It's easy to get through this section. And as you come through this small bend, you're going to let the car unwind to the edge of the right side of the track. So you're going to be all the way to the right side of the track. This enables you to take this next turn flat out as well. So usually as you're about, I don't know, you got to pick a spot yourself, but you see that dead section to the right, just past my mirror on the left side of my right mirror? Usually as I'm about there is when I'm turning in. So you're flat out, you're turning in, and you're just going to sweep past this apex. You don't have to be right on it, but you sweep past that fairly tight, and that'll push the car to the outside of the track. Sometimes I get a little wheel off, just a touch there. Oftentimes I don't. So now you're still flat out and you're aiming towards this final chicane. There's the Bridgestone bridge there, which is a good marker for braking, but it's way too early. So at speed, you're going to want to be braking, hard braking, and there's a stain on the road. So here you go. You're going to bring the car over to the left very slowly. Get it on the left side of the track. And you can see there's the bridge, but there's also another white line on the track. See right there. So there's a nice little white line. Again, that's still too soon, but I'll move my antenna over. So you see that stain right there, right in front of us to the left slightly? That is where you brake. So somewhere about right here is where I start braking. And I probably brake too early here still. I'm still not confident on the intensity of my brakes and making sure I don't, brake too hard or brake too little, but that's why I'm not going top speed yet, but I'm qualifying mid-pack and still doing okay. So anyway, as you see this kind of splotch starting on the track is where you can start your braking. So it's a hard brake through here, keep it on the left side. Now this is another thing. Usually you'll take this in second gear. I found that I get to second here as I turn in, and I'm back on the throttle. As I catch this edge, I'm dropping it to first gear. And that gives me a little bit more torque out of this turn. Now, you got to be delicate with the throttle here, too. It's easy to spin because it's a very quick turn. So once you get into that turn, there's a little bit of a burst of throttle, but immediately back down, braking a touch, and bringing it through this turn. Again, you unwind here. You can use the off track a bit, but not too much. And don't jam on the throttle. This is a time to use delicate input of the throttle, squeeze it on until that wheel is straight, and then you can get it full on. And that's it. The start-finish line is, I don't believe it's there. I believe it's this next line up here. Right here. It seems that the clock stops over at the other line, yet the flagger is waving here, so, or just past here. So I once lifted too early and lost a few tenths of a second, but just be aware that it's not, it's one of these two lines. So and this is the start finish, and the pits are not, the pit exit is past the next turn. So since we haven't talked about the next turn, even though we're starting a new lap now, or an official lap, you'll see these markers. So you're going to get up to pretty good clip here. I will even get up to 6th gear just before this braking point. So you see that 100 marker on the left side. I brake pretty firmly just as that 100 marker disappears from my view. Now, you don't know what my field of view is. Yours might be different. You might be using goggles, whatever, but I'm using that as a reference, so you kind of have to pick your own. Now, the key with this turn is that it's very easy to just say, I'm going to take as much speed as I can into it. But it's far more important to carry speed out of it. So if you brake a little early here, that's fine. Let yourself brake a little bit early. Be okay with that, because that'll allow you to get on your throttle sooner for this next turn. So I often get down to second gear here. I'm out here, and I'm going to come in and turn in over this section and let it unwind out here. That seems to be the fastest line. So you got to get the car turned enough, or you just push past that turn. And then from this point on, you're full throttle. Another tip, as you're coming out of this turn, you're very eager to get on the throttle. So don't jam it on. You can spin here on the exit if you're not straight. Your wheels aren't straight. So be careful with that. All right, so let's take this a little bit faster. So it's kind of important to take Eau Rouge fast, because so I'm not going to take it full throttle because my tires are really cold. So normally I'd be full throttle here. You sweep past here. You look for this edge, touch it, hold it a second longer, then straighten. It'll let you run past that edge and right over that edge, and now you're on the back straightaway. So you're flat out here. You let the car move to the left side. So obviously I'm not going anywhere near as fast as I would. I'm looking for that white line. There it is, hard braking, just pass it. I'm getting to the third here. Rotating up, back on the throttle. Little lift, let it turn around. Fourth here. Sweep through here, maybe a little lift there. Didn't need it now because I was going so slow. Braking here. Dropping down to third and dropping down to second there. RPMs are pretty high, but I can squeeze out of like that. Okay, there's my fourth gear turn. Let it unwind. Downshift to 2. Make this edge a little bit. Let the car unwind to the edge, and then bring it back in. Let it reach the edge of the track here. And now we're coming down to this. So brake, down to fourth, turn it in, use the curve there, lift to rotate the car a little bit, then back on it. Well, that wasn't pretty, but it's hard to do it when it's slow. Down to third, as you turn in there, let it unwind, get it into gear, and now we're flat out. Coming across here to save a little bit of time. I know my RPMs are not high yet, but yeah. So carry it all the way to the right side of the track here, and then turn in, sweep past that, let the car unwind a little bit. We're coming down, looking for that stain, braking hard. Second gear, first gear there, a little bit of throttle, lift, rotate, squeeze on the throttle. Okay, let's take Eau Rouge at speed this time. My tires are a little warmer. I'm going to be seventh gear, about right here. I'm going to sweep in, catch that edge, rotate in, hold it, unwind. There you go. Keep it to the right side here. Let it unwind to the left. Check your gauges, wiggle your fingers. Brake hard. Down to third, back on the throttle, up, lift a little bit, let it rotate. Fourth gear, lift again slightly. Unwind, get off the curb. Back down to fourth, third, second, hold it in tight. Little. I just downshifted third just to show you that one. All right, let me talk a bit about drafting. There's a thing with this course, and I usually don't talk about racing, actual in-race dynamics in these beginners series, but if you start doing a race on this track, you're going to find this out very quickly, and so it's very good to know it. Because the cars go so fast, they create a draft. So if you know anything about racing, you know about draft. It's like a DRS zone. It just sucks the car behind another car up because they're the front cars braking, basically breaking through the wind, creating a tunnel and allowing the car behind it with less resistance to go faster. So you're going to see this happen a lot, and it's going to surprise you. I'm going to show you a few clips here from a couple of different races that I did, and you'll see the problem with I'm not particularly going that much faster than these people until I get into a zone where there's drafting. So let's take a look. So in this case, I'm seemingly pretty far behind, but as I get through Eau Rouge here, the suction effect of the draft is starting to take effect. And if you can look closely, I am drawing closer and closer to these cars in front of me, which is fine and is very helpful, obviously, in passing. But it presents problems because you have to prepare for that sudden speed, that closing rate. Otherwise, you get yourself in trouble. So here's another example where I'm much closer to the car in front of me, and I'm coming up on the back straightaway. And you'll notice that the draft is really pulling me up on him. We really exited the corner the same, but I've got a big draft coming. And it's going to put me in a bad situation because I'm not going to be able to pass him in this really fast kink here. So you'll see I get right up on him, and I have no choice. The exit is on the right. He's moving to the left. It's a very awkward place to be. So there you have it, Spa Francorchamps, the Grand Prix version. I hope this video is helpful to you and helps get you up to speed. So a few notes specific to this course. Number one, be very gentle with the inputs through Eau Rouge. It's as if you're going to be driving on ice when you're going through that turn. You can't make big adjustments. If you find yourself slightly offline, don't try to force your car back into it. You will find yourself in the wall. So just be gentle there. Number two, use all of the track. If you go into the entry screen before you hit test or whatever in the testing phase, you'll see a rules panel. Click that and it'll show you all the places where you can actually go pretty wide or use off-track areas without being penalized. So be aware of that. They're always handy to have. In some areas you might use them. In most areas at our speeds we don't really use them that much. So just check them out and be aware of them. Number three, be aware and use uphill and downhill braking zones. A lot of places like here on the track, you're coming down the hill, you're turning, you're braking. So it's very different from later turns where you're headed uphill and you're turning and braking. The weight shift on the car is completely different. So what you do in one version of the turn will not apply to the next. So in some instances, you have to be very careful to avoid spinning the car. In other instances, you can use that uphill, for example, turn to get on the throttle earlier. But you have to be smart and use them as appropriate. And lastly, as we just discussed, be careful of the draft. I know this is more of a in-race tip, but it is still important. That draft will catch you out. It'll catch you in places where you're not expecting. And we were all about safety rating points here, at least early on in our racing career. So we want to make sure we're not ramming into people on the back end. Because even if you are a slower car a little bit, you will draft up on people. Let's say somebody passed you and you find yourself now in the draft and you're pulling up on them. So just be smart, be aware of what's coming, set up your passes appropriately and not in bad positions because the draft caught you out. There you have it. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to us on YouTube, and we'll see you soon at the next track.